Hey guys, welcome to part five and becoming the best team in IPL history, KKR. Obviously, the greatest of all time. They've been the best team for the past 12 years. Numbers don't show it, but in our heart, we all really know what's true. They've released Chris Green, Harry Gurney, Nikhil Nayak, Siddesh Lad, and Tom Banton. Uh, KKR in the last couple of years have finished fifth. They had a captaincy change last season, midway through the season, where Owen Morgan came in as captain. And towards the end, we started noticing a little more attacking approach from the team, which runs through Owen Morgan, and he's done it with the England squad, which has worked brilliantly for them. And so I'm expecting KKR. I know they don't have a big budget, but in the 2021 season, I'm expecting a more Owen Morgan side out. So I'll start with you, Greg, and I'll come Nakul and Abhimanyu. Y'all have seen way more of Owen Morgan in international level than I have. So what more? What is the kind of buy he would go for in the auction, and what do KKR need?
I think Morgan's obviously a very calm, calculated kind of a risk taker. He's obviously transformed the way England approach white ball cricket after the disaster of 2015 World Cup, leading us all the way to probably the greatest afternoon to Lords for many a year. So yeah, he's definitely a massive boost to have him leading KKR, who I feel just needed a bit more direction with and a bit more of a plan as to how they were going to set up that kind of top seven, top eight batting lineup, because we saw it at times last year. The top eight could bat in any order. Other than maybe Shubman at the top, we had Nitesh Rana open, Tripathi open, Dinesh Karthik I think opened as well, and obviously the idea that Narayan continues. Well, best not get started on Narayan at the top,
which worked for a few games. Naran's a bit of a hit and miss with KKR, so I'm hoping Owen Morgan. The problem with KKR, at least in my opinion, in the last couple of years, has been an unsettled batting order. It's like you mentioned, Greg, the top seven keeps changing, apart from Shubman Gill, thankfully, who stays at the top of the order. The other six, they just keep fluctuating. It's like a merry-go-round, and they just pick a number out of the hat and they go, oh, yeah, today I'm opening and today you bat. Is that something that has cost KKR in the last couple of years, Nakul?
I think that kind of thing can work, and in theory, that is how a good T20 team should work. But it's really difficult to execute that well because there is the different roles of the innings. It's not about what number you bat necessarily, but what stage of the innings you come in at, and those needs are very different. And it also just unsettles people, and it requires very careful communication and management, which Owen Morgan and Brendan McCullum are both very good at. I think those two will work very well together. Obviously, Morgan has spoken at length about how much inspiration he took from Brendan McCullum in rebuilding well, I say rebuilding, building really an England white ball culture. I think the fact that Owen Morgan is at the helm means that KKR will not be bidding for Alex Hales. I think we can safely say that much. The real disappointment last year for KKR was Pat Cummins, the most expensive overseas player in IPL history, and was hittable, really hittable at a lot of stages of the innings. Obviously, he's a wonderful bowler and a wonderful cricketer, but he was too predictable, and it meant that he was taking up a slot and not really performing. Narayan batting anywhere other than opening, I think, is a waste. I think you're not getting a huge amount out of him. I think if you're, I was surprised that it did work as well as it did last year, in truth, and I'm not sure that's replicable again, to be honest. Dre Russ is Dre Russ. If he's fit, he'll be great. If not, you've got people who can bat around him or who can sub into him to some extent. That's the one advantage of having that many batters. Obviously, Morgan is a known quantity, and then Lockie Ferguson, I think, was curiously underused actually by them.
Yeah.
Like, one guy who they brought in as a replacement, who I think could be a really important player, is Tim Seifert, who is a fantastic player, really dangerous top order player and a wicket keeping option as well. If you ever need to give Dinesh Karthik a rest, but he's got such a great range of stroke. The reverse sweeps, he hits well down the ground, and I think he could be a good balancing option. KKR had this thing of going, all spin all the time for a little while, but I think it was the bowling really last year, but they weren't quite sure what they were going to be doing. Because even though, Greg, you're right that the top order was a bit inconsistent and a bit unsettled, but there was enough talent in there that they were able to get some scores on the board sometimes. But it's very difficult if you know that you've got 2 or 3 weak links in your bowling. So going for a fast bowler, going for a proper death bowler would be the way I'd go with KKR.
Yeah, I think with KKR, obviously with the overseas players, it's kind of settled who 4 will start. It will be Narayan, Eoin Morgan as captain, obviously, Andre Russell and Pat Cummins. There's a reason. That's the reason Lockie Ferguson and Tim Seifert ended up being underused. Tim Seifert didn't even play actually, but yeah, basically if Russell ever gets injured, Lockie Ferguson comes in. That's what happens with KKR because we use Russell as a death bowler. But like you said, obviously with Russell being not getting any younger, in KKR have struggled with that pace up. We have a very young bowling lineup. We have the youngest Indian fast bowling lineup in the IPL. And I think personally, I want to come to you, Abhimanyu. Do you think KKR should be going all out for an Indian pacer, an experienced Indian pacer? Maybe someone like Umesh Yadav, bring him back to KKR, who's done well for KKR in the past.
Yeah, actually, even at times Virat Kohli even used him well at RCB. And the last season or two, maybe he wasn't doing too well, but I remember him thrashing Mumbai Indians at the start of an innings. So Umesh Yadav is definitely one pick that a KKR could target. I would say even S. Srishant for the experience that he brings on board, because the Indian seamers that KKR have are very inexperienced, and that was visible in the last IPL, and probably he could help them with that.
But obviously, in the past, we've seen Dinesh Karthik, when he was captain, mention the youngsters as they're good boys. They want to learn. Maybe, and I will come to you, Greg, first on this. Is having someone like a S. Srishant in the squad a good thing because of how young the squad is? I think he's just frozen.
Sorry, I think my Wi-Fi is gone. Hello?
Did you hear my question or should I repeat it?
No, sorry, mate. My Wi-Fi is just dropping.
It's still freezing.
It's stuck now again.
Yeah.
Classic Zoom. All right, I'll just come to you, Nakul, till Greg sorts himself out. Nakul, so obviously Dinesh Karthik has, when he was captain, mentioned that KKR youngsters, they're a bunch of good boys and they're willing to learn. So Abhimanyu mentioned Srishant, obviously with his past, given his past, is that a risk KKR should be willing to take, having someone like him around the youngsters?
Srishant is such an interesting character, such an interesting story. I would love to see him get picked up by somebody, if only for the drama, as much as anything else. It's a tough one to call with KKR because if anyone can rehabilitate him and turn him around, it's Morgan and McCullum. But whether they'll want to take that risk is a whole other question that I think is quite difficult to answer because they don't really want disruptive influences around the squad, so they'd have to be convinced of him. I think if they were convinced with him, they would go all out for Srishant. Absolutely. Whatever you can want to say about Morgan and McCullum is that they don't do things by halves. They're absolutely committed to whatever they do. I mean, I don't want to get, you mentioned, jokingly, KKR, the greatest franchise. I mean, you picked the wrong Knight Riders. It's Trinbago have been in the CPL have been magnificent over the last few years. Now led by Brendan McCullum, and I wonder if somebody like Ali Khan might be someone that KKR would go for as a good bowling option. He doesn't fit necessarily the profile of experienced fast bowler, but he does have a lot of good T20 experience and is a winner at T20 level.
Yeah, Greg, KKR retained Ali Khan. Is he someone you think KKR can manage to fit in the 11? And if so, at whose expense?
Yeah, I think he's probably a difficult one to get in the 11. But yeah, I was a bit surprised that they picked him up for last year's T20. Obviously, he did pretty well with the Trinbago Knight Riders in that side. But I mean, I'm a big fan of the young Indian fast bowlers that KKR have got coming through, Nago Koti and Shivam Mavit as well. I thought they were really good when they got their chance last year. So I would like to see them get a bit more experience and get a bit more of a run in the side. And I think Morgan as captain will be able to lead them and learn. They'll be able to learn an awful lot from him and the think tank they've got there with Brendan McCullum. So yeah, Ali Khan could be an option, but I think he's probably tough to get in the side if you're playing Varun Chakravarti as well. Because after his breakthrough year last year, I'd imagine he's one of the first names on the team sheet.
Now, obviously, KKR don't have the biggest budget in the going into the auction, so they always run the risk of being outbid by other teams. So, Abhimanyu, I'll come to you because you follow the Shahid Mushtaq Ali Trophy. Who's an Indian experienced pacer that KKR could look at to support the young guys?
Umesh Yadav or Srishant is what I can see, because there aren't a lot of options this time in Indian seamers that teams could target to help them achieve the playoffs or the trophy. But I feel that's all the options. Meriwala probably another one that they could target, but I think they're going to be outbid on that one because by someone like RCB or someone who have a lot more budget, RCB or even Sunrisers, because of the number of spots they have available. They have a lot more cash to spend on each player.
Yeah, and what about someone like a Varun Aaron? Could Varun Aaron be someone that they could look at, Nakul?
Varun Aaron, actually, it's the sort of player England have tried to use in the past in T20 cricket, someone in that sort of Mark Wood role of just running and bowl fast, and we don't really care what else happens. But then Mark Wood's role has also slightly evolved with England, and he's found a way to be more effective. Incidentally, I'm not saying that KKR will go for Mark Wood. That's not going to happen. I think he could well go unsold because of his high base price and his bad injury record, as fun a bowler as he is to watch. But I think if I was going to say one name for KKR, it would be Umesh Yadav.
And Greg, one name?
Yeah, I think so. I think they've got obviously a lot of firepower at the top, so that's set. I think the best option would be one of the experienced guys like an Umesh Yadav to come in and really help nurture the young core of fast bowlers that hopefully they can keep hold of for the next 2, 3, 4 years as they really come through and come to fruition.
Right. Let's hope KKR get that Indian fast bowler, because I think KKR need that one player who can push them from constantly being the team that finishes just outside the playoffs to being in the playoffs and reaching that final once again.